This afternoon I'm really blessed to be able to meet and speak with a very precious apostolic woman. Her name is Desley Barba, and she is one that I would class as a forerunner of many things. Her and her first husband established ministries in Thursday Island, but she's just an amazing woman of God and a true mother in the faith. And so I just really, it's such an honour to be able to spend time with Desley. And again, Desley is part of Spirit of Esther up here in Townsville. And so Desley, how did you come to the Lord? Were you raised as a Christian, or was it an encounter you had with the Lord?
Well, I came from a low socioeconomic family, as well as being one of three children to a single mum. But our grandmother was, my grandmother and my maternal grandmother was one of the first people to be converted to Pentecost in Rockhampton when the Pentecostal revival went to Rockhampton many years ago. And that would have been in the 1920s, 22 or something like that. I'm not quite sure, yeah. So, but I grew up with my grandmother, and she took us to church. She read the Bible to us. She prayed with us. And so she also used to do house meetings and would go to all these, because my uncle was working with the main roads, building infrastructure. They would camp along out in a lot of the little places, and so my grandmother then would have Sunday school and house meetings with the little families that were around in the area. And because she had them Sunday schools, a lot of the parents came to the Lord as well. But for myself, well, we lived in North Rockhampton where we had a house meeting, and it was there when I was 7 years of age that my grandmother, well, we went to church, and Pastor Lloyd Averill was ministering at that particular time, and he when he preached that night, I felt I needed to give my heart to the Lord, because I always had this passion that, you know, that I loved the things of God, that I'd like to read the Bible, and anything they did at church I used to do. So that was, you know, and I don't know, I can't tell you what he preached about or anything else. I just knew that I needed to get saved, that I needed to give my heart to the Lord. So that was how I became a Christian. And then we used to have 2 Sunday schools. We used to go to the Church of England. It was Church of England back in those days. So we went to the Church of England Sunday school in the morning, because a lot of our South Sea Island people were Church of England. And then in the afternoon, well, then we would go to the Pentecost Sunday school. So I went to 2 Sunday schools. So I couldn't get away from it. And but when I think about it, I think, well, when I went to the Church of England Sunday school, we learnt the Apostles' Creed. We learnt, you know, one God, one Father, you know, the Trinity, and some sound doctrine was in those days. Very good sound doctrine. And so that doctrinally build that foundation to build on. And then going over into the Pentecost, well, we learned about salvation and the baptism of the Holy Spirit and healing, and because we never went to a doctor. My grandmother, as soon as we got sick, she would pray for us, and so we never knew what it was to go to a doctor. I think I was 14 years of age when I first went to a doctor. That was after my grandmother passed away. My grandmother passed away when I was 12 years of age, and then we moved to Bowen, where my mother had married, and to our step family, and his mother was a Christian as well. So we went to church with her. So then I was baptised in water, filled with the Holy Spirit at 12 years of age. So that all was follow on. While we were in Rockhampton, and there was 2 ladies that had not long come out of Bible college, Alice Marbach and Margaret Williams. and Alice is still alive today. She's, I think it's in her 90s now. And she used to, we had Sunshine Hour. So we did Sunshine Hour with them. And she always remembers us every time we say, oh, you were two little girls that came, my sister and I, that came to Sunshine Hour. So that sort of was the start of my grounding. But at that particular night of that, when I was 7 years of age, God gave me something. And that was, and I don't know, it just out of the blue, I said, when I grow up, I'm going to Bible college and I'm going to be a missionary.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know too much about all this thing, And then one of my big cousins, she had to turn around and say to me, well, you want to behave yourself and be a good girl if you want to be a girl.
Oh, no.
Because I was a little bit of a rat bag. But anyway, but it was something that I knew that God wanted me to do when I grew older, when I grow up. And it was funny that when I was 18 years of age, I went to a youth camp at Burleigh Heads, and on the way down, we went to the AOG Bible College at New Farm. It was at New Farm in Moray Street at that particular time. And when I went there, I was thinking to myself, I've been here before. I've seen this place. And I thought, I don't know where I've seen it, but then I realised that was in that vision I had of going to Bible college. That was the Bible college that I had seen.
Wow.
And I didn't go to Bible college that year, but the next year they had moved over to Graceville, and that was when I started Bible college then. I should have gone the year before, but I didn't. But I was only 18 years of age. So at 19 years of age then I went to started Bible college at Graceville for 3 years. And so that became some of my grounding and some of my learning things, and we had to live by faith. We had to trust the Lord for everything. I never went in there with a bank account. I never went in there with Centrelink, AbStudy, AusStudy, or whatever they get today, student support. We went in there where we had studies in the morning. We had to find jobs in the afternoon. We went to housework. The boys did gardening, anything domestic or that sort of stuff. So sometimes we used to have a trouble all over Brisbane finding these jobs that we had to go to. And it was funny, one of the kids that I had to look after, he was about 5-6 years of age, I think, at that particular time, and I had to babysit him when he came home from school. And his parents were doctors, and they weren't Christians, but later on he became a Christian. And he was, Bernadette and Patrick, when they came out of Bible college, they spent their first year under him. He was the pastor that they, in Melbourne then, so Chris Sutton. So that was one of the other influence people in, but, I didn't know then that, and because of Bible college, we always prayed for the people we worked for. And he said to me one day, he said, your prayers have been answered. And I said, well, didn't pray for you in particular, but we prayed for the people we worked for.
Yes.
So that, when I came out of Bible college, I thought, I didn't know what I was going to do. And there was a lot of things offered to me I could have taken on. And being mixed race, it's really hard because I was not black enough to be with black people, and I'm not white enough to be with white people. So I'm sitting in the middle here like this, we sit in the middle, and but I have a lot of white friends. I had a lot of black friends, but when we were in Barwon, sometimes it was very hard to fit in with our step family, so I went to Christian Endeavour, which was an interdenominational thing, and I made a lot of friends there, and white friends and that sort of stuff, and so we became good friends for a long time, and family, so.
So when did you meet your first husband?
When I came, because my first husband, well, they lived in Ayr and we lived in Bowen. And back in those days, we always had church things. You know, we always went to town, and nothing was they were always having conventions or special meetings or something, so we always mixed. So it was no big deal. But the funniest thing was that I would go to Ayr to visit my auntie, and then from Rockhampton or Bowen when we shifted to Bowen as well. And then one time I was friends with his sister, and she said, "I'll come out home," and they lived out bush in the 8 miles out of town on a farm. And she said, "We'll bring you back tonight when we go to youth." So I went home with them, her and her brother, and I was only like 14, 15 years of age. And anyway, and he took me home he was 5 years older than me, so he drove me home after church. And I sat over on the door as far away from him as I could possibly get. And he asked me if I wanted a milkshake on the way home, and I said, "No, it's too cold." And it was the hottest night. And then he said something said to him that night. He said, "How would you like to have her for your wife?" And I was only 14 years of age. And it was funny because not long, he never said that to me then. I mean, after we're married, we shared these things, And then one night we went to this meeting, and I said to one of my cousins that I went with, and I said to her, "See that fellow there? I'm going to get married to him when I grow up, when I get older." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Oh, no, nothing. Just mucking around, But it was something that I knew that would happen. It's funny how just out of the blue I said it. I wasn't even sort of looking at him or anything, I wasn't really 14 or 15 years of age, I was only there for a good time. I wasn't there for anything else. We didn't have girlfriends, boyfriends like they do today, so they were friends, But that's how we met. And then he went out to Mount Isa. He was out working at Mount Isa and I was in Bible college. And I said, "I'm going to Bible college," and I said, "I don't want nothing to do with you." Because we met up again when I was a bit older. So then it wasn't until I was in my last year then, and then we came down and he said, "You want to get married?" And he said, "You better say yes or I'll push you out the car, open the door and push you out the car." I said, "Oh, well, I suppose I better say yes." So that's how we come out. But, I think it was a God thing, And then, but we were only married 11 years when he passed away. 7 kids in 11 years.
Wow.
And so, it was hard, but we served the Lord for those full on, with all the kids and carted them everywhere and had cars that didn't really work that good and camped under trees and goodness knows where you didn't camp, and in the cane field we slept one night, and then but all those hardships, I don't look back and say I'm sorry that happened, or I don't think, I'm not angry about it, or, Bernie started Mount Isa, and then we went back there and relieved for 12 months while they had no pastor. Then we went to Darwin because they were starting a church in Darwin, so we went to Darwin and helped them out there. But that was after we had gone to Thursday Island. But we had Bernadette very sick with osteomyelitis in her arm. We nearly lost her. She had a bone decayed from here to here, and then a big blood clot was on her chest. And then the doctor said to me, "Why didn't you take her to the doctor?" I said, "I did." And but she survived. They said you could lose her, or we'll have to send her to Sydney and get her arm taken off. And that was the choices we had. And so we sent home our 2 mothers, the 2 grandmothers. They were praying. My mum had come to the Lord, of course, and they were praying people, so they prayed and the families prayed, and God healed her within a week. She had a new bone growing here, you know, and she was up, and then she had her arm in a sling. She couldn't straighten it, and every day I used to say to her, she'd cry every time she'd try to straighten it, and I'd say, you just say, by your stripes, Lord, I'm healed. So she was do it every day. She was 5 years of age, and so every day, and the few days she had a straight arm again.
Wow.
So we had lots of miracles happen, lots of miracles. God healed our kids, healed us, you know. But well, it was time for him to go, and next month it'll be 45 years since he passed away. While we were on a outreach to Mount Garnet. So yeah. So, but since he passed, well, I've always been involved in church, you know, like with women's ministry and kids ministry, and you know, and then I used to offside for the pastor at Anala and on the church board, and I was, so did a bit of ministry, so and I still go to do some preaching, and I try to get out of it. But I've got a couple of people that want me to go and preach for them at the moment, but I just haven't had chance to go anywhere because of that. So then of course I remarried and had another son, and that was, we were married for 42 years. So, and it was 12 months this month since he passed away also. So, but he was 100 years of age. So, you know, I miss him, but you know, God took him. So, and you know, it's the same as my first husband. One of the things I learned was that if you keep asking questions about why, it makes you angry and bitter.
Good point.
You know,
excellent.
So you know, you don't ask, and because when I was after Bernie passed, you know, and I thought that my thing was, if you marry a Christian, you'll have a long marriage. You know, that everything would be okay, and to have a short marriage like that was just devastating. But as I was coming back from Mount Garnet back to Innisfail where we were living, the Lord gave me that song that I heard my uncle sing. The things that we love and hold dear to our heart, they're just borrowed, they're not ours. God only let me use them to brighten my way.
Beautiful.
So remind me, dear Lord, you know. So in amongst all the grief and the hurt and everything else, I knew that God only loans us to them. They're only loaned to us for a season. You know. But the other thing is, on the other hand, people, you know, while I was going through grief, no one bothered to come and say, how are you? You know, though everybody was saying, oh, he was a good fellow, at least you got the kids, you know, this sort of thing. But I've learned that now that I can minister to people who have losses. And not to just say, oh, well, you know, sorry about you lost your husband, but how do you feel, you know? How are you going? How are you coping? You know, and do that sort of follow-up with people. And so it teaches you something that, you know.
That's really good.
So, you know, so people need to talk to them.
Desley's written a book about her life with Bernie and the establishing churches in Thursday Island. So she's been encouraged by family to write this book because she's got so much to share, and she's led such a fascinating, interesting life. She's also travelled overseas too, haven't you? And I
went to. I've been to Vanuatu, been to the Solomon Islands with ministry team, and to Cambodia, Malaysia. So, and then you know Bernadette was in Spain, so you know I went to Spain as well, and you know coming from a low socioeconomic family with nothing, we had nothing, just living on the smell of an oily rag more or less, but God's taken us around the world and blessed us, you know. And even when I look at this house here like this, I think, well, at least I've got a wooden floor and not a ground floor anymore. You know, not tin walls where we had to coal coming through and bag walls, and and
Wow.
you know, rain stuck home, and more rain inside the house than outside the house, and you know, so God's good.
Yes.
But you know, we don't look back
No.
Yeah.
and say
yeah.
they were bad days.
No.
Or if anybody
just
asks me
life.
about my childhood, I say we had a beautiful grandmother who
Yes.
taught us about the Lord.
Yes.
And the reason I wrote this book was because my baby was only 2, Bernadette was 10 years of age, my eldest child was 10, and my baby was 2. I had 7 kids in 8 years. And they didn't know too much about their father, so that and I never talked about it to them. It was too painful.
Too painful, yeah.
So it was easier to write the book, and so the kids were happy to have it. And last year at Christmas, most of all except a couple that didn't come with us because of COVID, but we all travelled up to Thursday Island for the 50th anniversary of the church since we opened it.
Wonderful.
So that was why I wrote the book, and for the benefit
wonderful.
of the island people as well, so they knew the story that was connected to the church and why we. And so, if the only thing the Lord took us to the islands for was the first Pentecostal church to be built in the Torres Strait. They weren't the first Christians. They were there Christian, but they were going because the Anglican and Catholic Church and the government had government places. You couldn't go out. We couldn't go out to the islands. We couldn't go anywhere. So we just had to stay there in that one place.
Right.
But so Pentecost wasn't allowed. They tried to break up everything. Every Pentecostal thing church had. So it was very hard to rent halls. It was very hard to rent houses.
Yes.
So, but God took us there and built that church. So that was the first Pentecostal church in the Torres Strait.
Wow. That's incredible.
First building.
Yes.
So
Wow.
God, and God provided the land and
Incredible.
everything. Then they said it was impossible to build, to get land. My husband went and to the land council, and he asked for 2 acres of land. They said, "You've got to be joking. There's no such thing here in the islands for that, you know." So so it's but God,
incredible
and then
journey.
all of a sudden this land turned up, and there's 2 acres. God, so God opened doors.
Yes.
Building materials came by just miracle after miracle. And we've seen lots of people healed and saved, and still people going on for the Lord today, even their kids, So
Wow, what a legacy.
Legacy.
What a
Yeah.
legacy. And I think of you and what you've established, the legacy. You have how many grandchildren and great-grandchildren?
I've got, I think the count is about 17 grandchildren, and I've got about 7 great-grandchildren that are on my side of the family, but I married a man who had 7 children as well. My second husband had 7 children, but they were older than my kids. But when he passed away, he had 6 generations, and he had 257 descendants from his first wife.
Wow.
And so all those kids, they all regard me as being their grandmother, so I have to be a grandmother to, not just to my own flesh and blood, but to all the foster kids, to all the step kids, to
Yes. Yes.
so I just take them as they come.
Yes. Yes.
I don't try to be mother to them. I don't try to run their households or anything else. I just love them, and they come here to visit me. I just accept them. But I want to see more saved.
Yes.
More saved.
Even my own children.
Yes.
Like it's been very hard for them losing their father at early age. So anyway, we're still here. We're still God's good.
It is good.
So,
Amazing. It's incredible.
And Bernadette, and my daughter and son-in-law serving the Lord. So it's good.
Well, thank you, Bernadette. Thank
Bernadette.
you, Bernadette. Thank you, Desley, for sharing. It's so precious. We're going to do some more, talk again. and we're going to share a bit more. We want to hear more of your story, and with Pat. And yeah, there's so much more, and we could definitely do some more parts of questions that I have for you, Desley, because there's so much that we want to find out more.
Yeah.
We'll just finish at this part 1 here, and there'll be more to come. So
Yeah,
thank
that's
you
good.
for sharing.
Thank you,
Bless
Desley.
Thank
Bless
you,
you.
Desley. Yeah. Just need to check how much.
That's me there in that photo.
Oh wow!